Hello, folks. Trevor Baracco with Inside Nova, and we got Dave Fawcett, our fearless sports editor, joining us here after week one of high school playoffs. And we are going to jump right to some very interesting, unprecedented news throughout from Dave's decades of coverage. He's never quite had a story like this. So, Dave, fill us in on the drama out of Battlefield and Forest Park.
Right. So Friday night was the first round of the
Mhm.
playoffs. Forest Park was at Battlefield for a first round regional playoff game. Late in the third quarter, it was discovered that, and Battlefield was up 17-10 at the time. It was discovered that uh, we'll just call them the chain gang crew, the ones who work the markers, were wearing electronic devices, and that is something that is strictly prohibited. It's very clear in the National Federation rule book for high schools. You're not supposed to do that if you're in that capacity. So it was discovered. It was dealt with. The four-person crew was removed. They were replaced with another crew to finish out the game. Battlefield did win 27-16. But from that now has come an investigation initiated by the Prince William County school system. And what they want to look into is why were they wearing these devices and what was going on. I mean, again, there's no question that they had them on.
Mhm.
They were removed by the referees, and then the devices were removed, and then the crew left as well. And it is a rules violation. So they're trying to figure out, among other things, what were they doing with them, and what was going on. So at this point, I mean, we're at what is it, 3:17 Monday afternoon. The investigation is still going on. So they're just talking to all the relevant parties to kind of get at the bottom of this. So without, because there's just a lot of, without speculating, I think at this point everything's on the table as far as, well, Forest Park is could still possibly get back into the playoffs, even though they lost. No, nothing's been eliminated, so I think everyone's kind of on standby, trying to figure out, okay, is this, what the next steps are going to be. The only surety is that somebody's going to play North Stafford, this Friday
Right.
in the region semi. So yeah, in talking to some people who've been around high school athletics for a while. This is kind of, yeah, uncharted territory. I mean, no one's ever heard of this. So I want to be clear, when we're talking about the chain gang crew, those are the people that um, deal with the line of scrimmage markers, the down markers,
Those
and all
guys.
that. And they're always usually supplied by the home team. They're volunteers, and then they, are always positioned on the visitors' sideline. And so, they're always in their primary job. They're working with the referees. Where's
Right.
the ball supposed to be marked? What down? And those types of things. And so that's a standard, thing you'll see at football games. But yeah, this is a whole new. I just it was very like, what, it
Yeah.
wasn't a just wasn't something that anyone had ever really heard of or dealt with, and but it's certainly something that they knew immediately. And I think both schools, Forest Park and Battlefield, both administrations look, they sent out the principals for both schools sent out a letter to the families, Saturday, explaining what was going on. So
Yeah.
everyone wants to get to the bottom of this, and figuring out what exactly, what were they, why did they have them, and what were they doing with them. I think those are the two big questions, among others, trying to figure out
And
what was
and
going on.
remind the listeners here, the home team was
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So yes, the game was at Battlefield.
yeah, so the home team was at Battlefield. These home teams supplied chain gang crew were standing and doing their work on the visitor side, on the
Correct.
visitor sideline.
Yes.
So, again, we don't have any strict answers and we don't want to speculate, but the scenario that could be a concern and why these rules are in place, and certainly correct me if I'm wrong, there could be a concern about stealing plays. Right,
Correct.
right.
That's at the core of this, is
Mhm.
exactly it. Was something being, heard and then relayed,
Yeah.
from the one sideline to the other. yes, that's all these things
Yeah.
that they got to see what was if that was even going on. Yep.
Gosh, we can't keep the drama out of sports at all levels
Well, and I
lately.
think it's one of these things too, where this is high school sports.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just kind of like you get a little like really. I think we really are having to talk about this, and we're really having to. Um, this
I
was
mean,
even a. I think that's what's throwing people a bit like this was going like what?
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah. So hopefully, they're doing their due diligence. They want for any rush to judgment and pointing fingers, just figure out what was going on and why, and then get this resolved because obviously somebody's got to play a game this
Right.
Friday, this weekend. So there is a time sensitivity factor here as well to figure out okay what's going to be the next step. But you also want to take those obviously the appropriate steps to make
Yeah.
sure
Get the
everything has been
answers.
yes, yes.
It does, I mean, it does sound crazy, and you read the story and you read the headlines and you're like, what is happening here? But
Right.
it really speaks to how significant and what a major facet of these not only kids, the kids' lives and the parents'
Right.
lives, and the fact that the school system is really devoting resources to this, I think just speaks to high school football's impact on the community.
Well, and I think it's one of those things where it was I mean, it was blowing up on social media
Yeah.
Friday night because there were photos and and all these things. And so again, when it was discovered, both administrations were dealt with it. No one, it was being dealt with. So again, no one disputes that they had the devices on them. And again, it's a that it's a violation of the rules. It's now just figuring out again why and what was going on there. So.
Yeah, well, stay tuned. I know Dave is going to be on top of this coverage as he dusts off his investigative journalism skills. We will jump kind of to the action on the field, actually on the field of play and not on the sidelines here, and we'll talk a little bit about kind of the marquee matchup that we discussed last week, which was Woodbridge and Patriot. And Dave, I do remember you saying kind of you would have been surprised if it was a lopsided affair one way or another. And it was close for a while, but
Yeah.
Woodbridge did run away with it. So
Yeah, so
give us a little
I was
recap.
right for the first half.
Right, right.
It was 14 all. But yeah, in the third quarter, Woodbridge outscored Patriot 20-7. And then, like you said, they just kind of, took control and ended up being a 41-21 decision. Woodbridge, I mean, again, we've talked about this a lot. I mean, they're a very explosive team. They average 44 points a game. This is their best team they've had since they went to the state semifinals in
Yeah,
2017.
almost a decade
Um,
ago.
Correct. So this is the most wins they've had since that team and first playoff win since that team and all that. So, they're certainly capable of that. Caleb Tucker, their first year starting quarterback, threw 3 touchdown passes. He has now 41 for the season against 3 interceptions. He's got a lot of options
Yeah.
again to throw to. James Shaw, who's one of those options, caught 2 of those touchdown passes, but he also returned a kickoff for a touchdown. His third time doing that this season. So they can do a lot of different things, and because of that, it certainly keeps defenses on their toes because they can come at you in so many different ways, and they're very efficient in how they execute that offense. And so they play Colonial Forge this Friday. Colonial Forge is the top seed, but again, as we've talked about earlier, couple weeks ago, I think the region's pretty open. There isn't this one dominant
Right.
team you're like head and shoulders above everyone else. So I think that should be a really good game. Woodbridge played Forge in 2024 season opener for both teams. It went down to the wire. Woodbridge went for a 2-point conversion, ended up not getting it. They lost 22-21. But so I think I would expect this to be a pretty evenly matched game. Colonial Forge averages 40 points a game. They're well coached as well. So don't at this point, 1 versus 4, it's not really too
Don't
much
read
about the
too much
seeds.
into that.
Correct. Right.
Gotcha. Wow. So Caleb Tucker, what if he don't make me do math? So he's pushing about 4 TDs a game through the
He's
year.
very efficient. I mean,
Yeah.
averaging like I think his passing completion percentage is just over 70. So he's not making a lot of mistakes. He's
Hmm.
making good decisions. Again, 3 interceptions in 11 games is given how much they pass the ball. Yeah, I mean, it really starts with him, but what they also can do with their running back Marquis Sharp and all their different wide receivers, it just they can, come at you a lot of different ways.
Gosh, good for him. And you said they play Colonial Forge, and that
Correct.
is obviously at the higher seeded
Correct. They'll
opponent.
be at
So it's
Forge Friday night. Yes.
gotcha. Brentsville, they had, I believe, what was a dominant performance
Sure.
in their first round. Kind of hit the highlights there.
Sure. So we haven't talked about Brentsville at
Right.
all this season, but
No. We've talked about the ladies flag football team, but we haven't
yes,
talked
right. We
about the
haven't talked about
fellas
the
too
guys.
much.
So, but they've been a perennial, playoff team. They actually,
Mhm.
this was their 11th straight season making the playoffs, which is a Prince William County record for most consecutive um, playoff appearances for among football teams. And so they were the fifth seed this year. They went down to James Monroe, which is in Fredericksburg, was the fourth seed. They ended up winning, 48-12. And as you mentioned, obviously a very dominant performance. But they kind of, adjusted well. Their starting quarterback, Mark Griggs, got hurt in the second quarter. Sam Richards came in and just threw for 148 yards, no interceptions, two touchdowns. They Sawyer Beckman, who's kind of their primary ball carrier, he's a guy that their first year head coach Brian Lowry considers very physical running back, very kind of a ground pounder and very durable. He ends up rushing for 104 yards and two touchdowns. Um, and so that they came away with a very good win for them, and kind of again showed their own their versatility and what they're able to do. Now they'll face a stiff test this Friday. They play familiar foe. It's from the district, Kettle Run, who's the top seed. They'll be there in Nokesville on Kettle Run's Nokesville, not Brentsville's Nokesville, for the region semifinals on this Friday. But it was a big win for them. Obviously, they go in as the lower seed. They're going on the road, and they did. It was a very, very, as you said, very dominant performance.
Yeah, so that I mean that should be a really well attended affair. Brentsville
I
and
would think
Kettle
so.
Run,
Yes,
not too many
and they're kind
miles
of
separate those
right. They're not
schools.
very far apart. It's become kind of their local for Brentsville because they're the smallest school
Hmm.
in the Prince William County. So they don't have any rivals with the big schools. But so this is right. This is their big one anyway with Kettle Run, and so yes, I would think so.
And as you alluded to, we're kind of in the point now in the second round of the playoffs where you can almost expect, with maybe a few exceptions, almost expect any outcome from these games. So to review the schedule again for some of our local squads, Woodbridge, fourth seed at Colonial Forge. North Stafford at, as of now, Battlefield. We'll see
Right,
how the investigation plays out.
right.
And whether Battlefield's season continues. You certainly hope for the sake of the kids who one wants to presume has
Right.
had nothing to do with any of the shenanigans that may
That's
may
right.
have gone on. I mean, that would be devastating if their season came to a halt. But we shouldn't even, that's kind of getting way too ahead of ourselves. Some of the other Northern Virginia matchups here, we've got John Champ at Stonebridge, Potomac Falls at Riverbend. So kind of a lengthy schedule here. I won't run through all of it. What games will our folks be at, whether it's you or some of our stringers?
So we'll be at
Okay. I kind of was
Woodbridge at
hoping.
Colonial Forge, and we'll be at the other game as well, the North Stafford
Mhm.
TBD. But yes, we'll be at both those games,
Yeah.
whoever they're playing.
Great. Well, I think kind of for your sake, I'm hoping we can focus on the action on the field and not
That'd be
get so
nice.
bogged down, right?
Yes,
Dave's a little
right.
tired on this Monday afternoon. Dave, awesome work. Thank you as always, guys. If you want to keep up with these stories and of course keep up with our sports coverage, head to InsideNoVa.com, subscribe to our newsletters, and follow on all the various social media accounts. We appreciate you checking in. Thanks so much, Dave. We will see you next week. Get some rest.
Thanks. Thank you.